Stanley Ipkiss, an alcoholic, you heard me right. However, I don't want to say that the delirium tremens and all the events in the film are fiction. The movie The Mask is actually a metaphor for alcohol addiction. Once you see this parallel, it becomes impossible to deny it. Everything is in order at the beginning of the film. We see a nice guy who has a good job and lives in a decent apartment. However, as Stanley describes his situation, good things always seem to come last for him. To be honest, he is a complete loser who can't stand up for himself. He is stuck in a routine, and after work, he watches cartoons with his dog. He lacks the courage to make any changes. What leads him to pick up a bottle? It's always one bad day that causes him to do so. He was tricked by a car service and then thrown into a puddle as soon as he arrived at the club. His rental car stalled and broke down. Most importantly, he met a girl, but he didn't have the courage to ask her out on a date. He was feeling depressed. He came home and took a magic elixir. He put on a mask that symbolized alcohol intoxication. In short, he got drunk. Everything suddenly became colorful and cheerful for him. The sea was knee-deep. He walked with a flying gait and felt invincible that night. Having plucked up the courage, Stanley went to the garage in order to take revenge on the people who had offended him. In the morning, he felt a severe hangover, and yesterday's events seemed like a vague dream. He was late for work and could not stop thinking about the girl he had met. He knew he would never have the courage to ask her on a date, but he still wanted to see her again. He dressed up and looked irresistible that night. Club dancing was fun, but in the morning, his hangover was worse than ever. He woke up with a bottle in his hand and was already an hour late for work. His appearance was sloppy, and he smelled of alcohol. Stanley is becoming addicted to alcohol. It is beginning to have a negative impact on his social life. He is yelling at his boss, which is not typical of him. It is not difficult to get drunk, as there is an alcohol store on the first floor of his house, and delivery services are available. Like many people, Stanley first encountered alcohol, or the mask, during his student days. After that, he sought help and went to see a doctor who specialized in addiction issues. The doctor suggested that he undergo detoxification treatment. Stanley made an appointment with Tina, but not daring to express his feelings, he once again turned to alcohol for courage, or, as seen in the film, put on a mask. Alcohol can be fun, and it can help relax and liberate you. However, it is important to remember that alcohol can also be very dangerous. In the end, Stanley decided to stop drinking after confessing his feelings to Tina. This gave him the courage and strength to solve problems without the help of alcohol. In the film, we see people wearing a mask before a party, as if they are putting on a false front. This mask reveals their true desires and affects everyone differently. Some people become lumbering and slow, while others dance and enjoy themselves. And of course, who among us, when drunk, has not smiled at themselves in the mirror with a sense of their own irresistibility that evening? I don't want to get bogged down in conventions and explanations about why no one recognized Stanley in a disguise. After all, it's a metaphor. The entire movie is an allegory, and that's exactly what the doctor is talking about. I've heard this theory often in my childhood, from my mother, when someone has had too much alcohol. It's a great way to describe what happens to people when they're drunk. She said alcohol is a mask, like in the movie. If you have a romantic heart, like Stanley, it will reveal and magnify those feelings. But if you're a complex, angry person who's offended by the world, it can lead to trouble. Alcohol can be a mask. I never thought of it that way before. The film Mask is about how alcohol can change people. And when I came across a small post on Reddit about this, I simply slapped my forehead in disbelief. How could I remember the masks when I see drunk people, yet not remember drunk people when watching Mask? Well, now I know why. Whether there is any morality in all this is just a theory of mine, but I try to show my true self as often as possible, and wear masks to parties as rarely as I can.